The twin suns of Arcadia 7 dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the sprawling human colony. The sky was a vivid blend of pink and orange, with distant storm clouds glowing like embers against the fading light. Dr. Cassandra Hale watched the colors shift from the large window of her clinic, savoring a brief moment of tranquility. It had been a long day, filled with routine examinations of livestock and a few emergency surgeries on some of the planet's stranger fauna. But as she powered down her diagnostic equipment, ready to close up for the night, a deep rumbling vibration shook the ground beneath her feet. Cassandra paused, her fingers hovering over the clinic's control panel. The distant rumble intensified, accompanied by the eerie wail of the colony's alarm system. The intercom crackled to life, and a stern voice filled the air. "Attention all personnel, unidentified vessel approaching. All civilians are advised to remain indoors. This is not a drill." The alarm was a rarity. Arcadia 7 was a relatively peaceful outpost, far from any major trade routes or territorial conflicts. Cassandra's pulse quickened. She quickly donned her utility vest, which contained a basic med kit and a few surgical tools, and hurried outside to see what was happening. The colony's main square was already a flurry of activity. Soldiers in exosuits were taking up defensive positions, their laser rifles gleaming in the twilight. Civilians, caught in the middle of evening errands, were rushing back to their homes. As Cassandra pushed her way through the crowd, she caught sight of Governor Tarek, a stern-faced man with graying hair, barking orders at his aides. "Governor, what's going on?" she called out. He turned, his brow furrowed with concern. "An unidentified ship has entered our airspace. No communication, no identification. We're preparing for the worst." Before Cassandra could respond, a deafening roar filled the air, and a massive shadow fell over the colony. Looking up, she saw a sleek, dark vessel descending with a slow, ominous grace. It was unlike any ship she had ever seen. Its hull was covered in iridescent plates that reflected the setting sun, giving it an otherworldly glow. The ship settled with a heavy thud just beyond the colony's perimeter, sending a shockwave that nearly knocked her off her feet. Soldiers encircled the landing zone, weapons at the ready. The colony held its collective breath, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. After a long, nerve-wracking moment, a hatch opened with a hiss, and a ramp extended from the ship's belly. Out of the shadows emerged a figure tall, slender, and draped in flowing robes that shimmered like liquid silver. Cassandra's eyes widened as the alien figure stepped into the fading light. Its skin was a pale, bluish hue, almost translucent, and its eyes glowed with a soft, ethereal light. The being moved with a fluid grace, its presence both mesmerizing and intimidating. It raised a slender hand, signaling peace, though the soldiers kept their weapons trained on it. "Humans of Arcadia 7, the alien's voice rang out, clear and melodic, yet resonant like the peal of distant bells. I am Eslin, an envoy of the Celestian Dominion. We come not as conquerors, but as supplicants." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Supplicants? That was the last thing anyone expected from an advanced alien race arriving unannounced. The soldiers exchanged uncertain glances, but Governor Tarek stepped forward cautiously. "Why have you come to our colony uninvited, Eslin?" he demanded, his tone more curious than hostile. Eslin bowed his head, the glow of his eyes dimming slightly as if in sadness. "We are in desperate need of aid," he said softly. "Our guardian serpent, Cora, is gravely ill. Without it, our world is defenseless." At Eslin's gesture, several more figures emerged from the ship, carefully maneuvering a large, levitating platform. On it lay a creature unlike anything Cassandra had ever seen. It was a serpent, but unlike the creatures of Earth, this one was colossal, at least 20 feet long. Its scales glimmered with an opalescent sheen, like a cascade of rainbows caught in the twilight. But its magnificence was overshadowed by its obvious distress. The serpent's massive body trembled with each labored breath, its eyes dull and unfocused. Cassandra felt an instinctive pull to approach the creature. Years of treating animals both Earth native and extraterrestrial had honed her intuition, and she could tell this was no ordinary ailment. The creature was suffering. "I'm Dr. Cassandra Hale, the colony's chief veterinarian," she called out, stepping forward. "Let me see it." Eslin's eyes flickered with what might have been hope. "You are the healer we seek," he said, his voice tinged with urgency. "Please, help Nkora. We have tried everything, but it grows weaker by the moment." Cassandra approached the platform cautiously, her eyes scanning the serpent's body. As she reached out to examine it, the serpent let out a low, rumbling hiss, its coils tightening reflexively. The air around it seemed to vibrate with an almost electrical energy, and Cassandra could feel the creature's distress like a physical weight pressing against her chest. She pulled a handheld scanner from her utility vest and ran it along the serpent's throat. The display screen filled with incomprehensible readings. Whatever was inside the serpent defied the usual biological signatures she was accustomed to. Then, finally, the scanner's display settled on an image, a large, jagged stone lodged deep in the creature's throat, glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. "There's something lodged in its throat," Cassandra said, turning to Eslin. "A foreign object. But it's not just a stone. There's something more to it." Eslin's eyes darkened, his glowing pupils narrowing to slits. "That is the Croft Stone," he said in a grave tone. "It is a relic of ancient power, one we thought lost to the void. We do not know how it became embedded in our guardian, but it is draining its life force." The revelation sent a ripple of unease through the crowd. If this was truly a relic of immense power, what were its intentions? And why had it chosen this guardian serpent as its host? Cassandra turned back to Nkora, whose trembling had grown worse. Time was running out. She looked back at Eslin with determination. "I'll do everything I can," she said, her voice steady. "But I need to get it into my clinic, and I'll need your help to contain whatever this thing is." Eslin nodded, and with a wave of his hand, his attendants lifted the platform carrying Nkora, carefully maneuvering it toward the clinic. The soldiers and onlookers parted to let them pass, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. As Cassandra led the way into her clinic, she couldn't help but feel the weight of what lay ahead. This was no ordinary medical case. This was a puzzle that could either save or doom not just the serpent, but perhaps the colony itself. The door slid shut behind them, sealing Cassandra in with the alien serpent and its mysterious affliction. The doors of Dr. Cassandra Hale's clinic sealed shut with a soft hiss, muffling the clamor of the colony outside. The once bustling square had quieted, the crowd dispersing as soldiers maintained a tight perimeter around the building. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with tension and urgency. Eslin stood silently beside the levitating platform that carried the guardian serpent, Nkora, watching as Cassandra prepared her equipment. The serpent lay coiled on the examination table, its shimmering scales dimmed to a sickly, pallid hue. The creature's breathing was shallow, each rasp a strained, almost desperate sound. As Cassandra adjusted the clinic's lighting, Nkora's eyes flickered weakly, as if acknowledging the healer's presence. "I need to sedate it," Cassandra said, her voice steady despite the urgency. "If it thrashes, it could injure itself for us." Eslin gave a curt nod, stepping back to allow her space. He watched her movements with a keen, almost predatory gaze, his luminous eyes narrowing each time the serpent flinched. Cassandra retrieved a syringe filled with a mild sedative specially formulated for alien physiology. It was a cocktail she had perfected over years of treating Arcadia's 7 strange fauna, but as she approached Nkora, she hesitated. The creature's eyes locked onto hers, a silent plea that sent a shiver down her spine. "It knows," Eslin murmured, almost to himself. "Nkora understands what you intend." Cassandra nodded and gently inserted the needle into a soft patch of scales near the serpent's neck. Nkora shuddered but did not resist. Within moments, its massive coils relaxed, its breathing growing less frantic. The sedative would buy her some time, but not much. Whatever was inside Nkora was killing it, and fast. As Cassandra began scanning the serpent's body, the clinic's diagnostic screens filled with alien symbols and medical data. The obstruction was clearly visible now, a jagged stone, roughly the size of a human fist, lodged deep within Cora's esophagus. It seemed to pulse with an inner light, like the slow beat of a distant star. "It's not just a physical blockage," Cassandra muttered, adjusting the scanner to focus on the stone's properties. "There's an energy field surrounding it, something I've never seen before." Estlin stepped forward, his robes whispering softly against the floor. "The Croft Stone," he said, his voice a low whisper. "It is an ancient relic, a creation of the Celestian priests from millennia ago. We believed it was lost forever, scattered into the void during the Great Sundering. And yet, here it is embedded in our guardian." Cassandra looked up, her brow furrowed. "What exactly is this stone? And how did it end up inside Nkora?" Estlin's eyes darkened, the glow within them flickering like a dying flame. "The Croft Stone is not merely a relic. It is alive, in a way. It feeds on the life force of any creature it touches, growing stronger as it drains its host. In ancient times, it was used by our ancestors as a weapon to subjugate lesser species, but it became too dangerous. We sealed it away, hoping it would never resurface." Cassandra's stomach twisted at the thought. She had heard of parasitic creatures, but a sentient, energy-draining stone was beyond anything she had ever encountered. "If it's feeding on Cora," she said slowly, "then removing it will be extremely risky. The stone might resist, or worse, it could kill Nkora in retaliation." Estlin's expression tightened, his alien features inscrutable. "Without Nkora, my people are defenseless. The serpent is bound to us, our protector against the threats that lurk in the depths of space. You must save it, Dr. Hale. We cannot lose our guardian." Cassandra turned back to her equipment, her mind racing. The usual surgical techniques would be useless here. If the stone was sentient, cutting it out could trigger a violent reaction. She needed to find a way to neutralize it, something that could sever its bond with the serpent without causing irreversible damage. She reached for her neurotranslator, an experimental device that had been designed to communicate with alien life forms through neural impulses. It had never been tested on something like the Croft Stone, but Cassandra was running out of options. "I'm going to try something unconventional," she said, strapping the device to her wrist. "If the stone is sentient, maybe I can convince it to release its hold." Estlin's eyes widened in disbelief. "You would communicate with the Croft Stone? It is not a creature of reason, human. It is a relic of destruction." "Maybe," Cassandra replied, her eyes never leaving the serpent. "But everything that lives has some instinct for survival. If I can appeal to that, maybe it will let go." She took a deep breath and activated the neurotranslator, placing it gently against Nkora's scales, near where the stone was lodged. Instantly, a jolt of energy surged through her body, and the world around her seemed to flicker and warp. The clinic dissolved into darkness, replaced by a swirling void filled with fragmented images, flashes of ancient battles, distant stars, and the faces of alien beings long extinct. A voice, if it could be called that, rumbled through her mind like the groan of shifting tectonic plates. "Who disturbs me?" The presence of the Croft Stone was overwhelming, a torrent of raw emotion and primal hunger. Cassandra fought to keep her mind steady as the relic's thoughts pressed against hers. She projected thoughts of calm, of peace, trying to reach whatever sentience lay beneath its chaotic impulses. "I am Dr. Cassandra Hale," she thought, hoping the stone could perceive her intentions. "You're killing your host. If you let go, I can help you find another source of sustenance." The stone's response was a surge of anger, an image of a blackened world consumed by fire. It was a relic of war, forged in hatred and designed to conquer. But beneath that fury, Cassandra sensed something else, a deep, gnawing fear. "You're trapped, aren't you?" she continued, her thoughts gentle, probing. "You're dying as well, bound to this creature. If you don't release Nkora, you'll both die." For a moment, the pressure in her mind eased. The stone hesitated, as if weighing its options. Cassandra pressed on, her thoughts filled with images of energy-rich stars and nebulae, places where the stone could feed without destroying another living being. Slowly, the darkness around her began to recede. The clinic's sterile lights flickered back into view, and Cassandra gasped, her mind reeling from the sudden return to reality. The Croth stone's pulsing had dimmed, its grip on Cora's throat loosening ever so slightly. "It's working," Cassandra whispered, her voice barely audible over the serpent's labored breaths. "But we need to act fast." Estlin stepped forward, his eyes alight with a newfound hope. "What do you need, healer?" "I need a containment field strong enough to hold the stone," she replied. "If we can extract it now, while it's weakened, we might just save Cora." Without hesitation, Estlin issued commands to his attendants, who rushed to retrieve a portable containment unit from their ship. As they worked, Cassandra prepared a series of delicate instruments, her hands moving with practiced precision. The next few moments would decide the fate of not just the serpent, but potentially the entire colony. Nkora's breaths came slower now, the Croth stone's influence waning. But Cassandra knew this was their last chance. She had managed to convince the relic to loosen its grip, but it was a tenuous truce. The moment they tried to extract it, the stone could lash out with deadly force. The stage was set, the tools prepared. Now came the most dangerous part of all, the extraction. The air in Dr. Cassandra Hale's clinic was tense, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. Nkora, the guardian serpent, lay limp on the examination table, its shimmering scales dulled to a pale gray. The once majestic creature's breathing was shallow, each exhale a desperate, rattling gasp. Cassandra's mind raced as she adjusted her surgical instruments, her fingers trembling ever so slightly. The Croth stone was still lodged deep in the serpent's throat, pulsing faintly with that strange, otherworldly light. Behind her, Estlin stood with his arms crossed, his eyes never leaving the dying serpent. His alien features were taut, his usually glowing pupils dimmed with worry. The attendants who had brought Nkora from the ship hovered nearby, ready to act at a moment's notice. Outside, the colony's soldiers remained on high alert, ready to storm the clinic if the situation spiraled out of control. Cassandra wiped the sweat from her brow. "Estlin, listen to me," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "The stone is resisting. It's not just an object, it's aware, and it's terrified. If we try to force it out, it could kill Nkora instantly." Estlin's eyes narrowed. "The Croth stone is a parasite, a relic of destruction," he replied, his voice tinged with frustration. "It must be removed, no matter the cost." "I understand your urgency, but we need a different approach," Cassandra insisted. "If I can communicate with it again, maybe I can convince it to detach willingly. Otherwise, we're risking the Guardian's life for nothing." Estlin hesitated, torn between his duty to save Nkora and the fear that time was running out. The serpent had been their protector for centuries, shielding their homeworld from cosmic threats. Without it, their entire civilization was vulnerable. Finally, Estlin gave a reluctant nod. "Very well, healer. But know this, if Nkora dies, so does our hope." Cassandra took a deep breath, nodding. She reattached the neurotranslator to her wrist, once again placing its delicate sensors along Nkora's throat, near the pulsating stone. The moment she activated the device, a shock wave of energy rippled through her body. The clinic around her blurred and faded, replaced by that same swirling void of darkness she had glimpsed earlier. This time, the sensation was even more intense. Cassandra's consciousness was pulled into a maelstrom of chaotic images and emotions, as if she were being swept through the fragmented memories of the stone itself. She saw glimpses of dying stars, crumbling worlds, and beings of light engaged in a desperate struggle against shadowy forces. The stone's thoughts were raw, primal, filled with pain, hunger, and an overwhelming sense of isolation. "You again." The voice rumbled through her mind, less a sound and more a vibration that sent shivers down her spine. "Why do you interfere?" "I must feed, or I perish." Cassandra steadied herself, focusing her thoughts into a calm, soothing stream. You're killing your host, and it's killing you too, she projected. There's another way. Release Nkora, and I will find a source of energy for you, something that doesn't involve destroying a living creature. The stone's response was a burst of defiance, images of countless worlds it had drained, beings it had consumed to sustain its own existence. I was forged to consume, it hissed. I am what I am. I cannot change. But you can, Cassandra insisted, pushing back against the storm of rage and fear. I've seen your memories. You were created as a weapon, but that doesn't have to be your only purpose. Let go of Nkora, and I promise we'll find another way for you to survive. For a moment, there was silence. The chaotic images in her mind slowed, and the presence of the stone seemed to waver, as if torn between its primal instincts and a flicker of something that almost resembled hope. Then, like a tide receding, the oppressive weight of the stone's consciousness withdrew. Cassandra gasped as the darkness lifted, and she found herself back in the clinic, her hands gripping the edge of the examination table for support. Estlin and his attendants were staring at her, their expressions a mix of disbelief and cautious optimism. What happened? Estlin asked, his voice hushed. I've made contact, Cassandra said, her voice shaky but determined. The stone, it's willing to let go, but only if it believes we can sustain it with another source of energy. Estlin's expression shifted from surprise to urgency. Then we must act quickly. Nkora's life force is nearly depleted. Cassandra nodded, turning to the attendants. Bring me the containment unit, she ordered. We need to extract the stone now, while it's compliant. The attendants hurried to bring forth a portable containment field, a shimmering, translucent cube designed to trap volatile energy sources. Cassandra adjusted the field settings, ensuring it was stable enough to hold the Croth stone once it was removed. Hold Nkora steady, Cassandra instructed, her hands moving with a surgeon's precision as she reached for a pair of slender forceps. This will be delicate. One wrong move, and the stone could react violently. Estlin and the attendants placed their hands on the serpent's trembling body, their collective strength keeping it still. Cassandra carefully inserted the forceps into Nkora's throat, guiding them toward the faintly glowing stone. Beads of sweat trickled down her forehead, her heart pounding in her chest as she maneuvered the tool with painstaking care. As the forceps closed around the stone, Cassandra felt a surge of resistance, a final, desperate pulse from the relic as it sensed its impending detachment. She projected a final thought through the neurotranslator, a gentle promise, you will not die. I will keep my word. The stone's resistance weakened, its pulsations slowing. With a delicate tug, Cassandra pulled it free from Nkora's throat. The serpent let out a deep, shuddering hiss, its body going limp with relief as the stone came loose. The moment the Croth stone was fully extracted, Cassandra thrust it into the containment field. The cube hummed to life, sealing the stone within a shimmering barrier of light. The relic pulsed angrily, but the field held firm, containing its energy. Nkora's scales began to brighten, the faint glow of life returning to its once dull eyes. The serpent let out a low, grateful rumble, its massive coils relaxing for the first time in what seemed like an eternity. You did it, Estlin breathed, his voice filled with awe. You have saved our guardian. Cassandra allowed herself a moment of relief, her shoulders sagging as the adrenaline drained from her body. But the victory was bittersweet. In the containment field, the Croth stone continued to pulse, its light dimming as it struggled against its confinement. It was a living being, in its own way, and she had promised to find it a new way to survive. Governor Targ burst into the clinic, his eyes darting between Cassandra, Estlin, and the glowing cube. What is that thing? He demanded. Is it safe? For now, yes, Cassandra replied. But we need to find a long-term solution. If it's left to starve, it could become even more dangerous. Tarek's eyes narrowed. You mean to keep it alive? He asked incredulously. Yes, Cassandra said firmly, meeting his gaze. There's more to this stone than we understand. If we study it, we might learn something valuable. It's not just a threat, it's an opportunity. Estlin stepped forward, placing a hand on Cassandra's shoulder. Your compassion is remarkable, healer, he said softly. You saved both Nkora and the stone. My people will not forget this. As Nkora slowly slithered off the examination table, regaining its strength, Cassandra watched the pulsating stone in its containment field. She had won the battle, but a new challenge lay ahead, finding a way to sustain the Croft stone without endangering another living creature. In the vast, uncharted depths of space, the line between life and death, predator and protector, was often blurred. But here, in her small clinic on Arcadia 7, Cassandra had forged a fragile peace. Now she just had to figure out how to keep it. The mysteries of the Croft stone were far from over, and Cassandra couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The air was still heavy with the scent of ozone as Dr. Cassandra Hale leaned against the cool metal wall of her clinic, catching her breath. Nkora had been saved, the ancient serpent slowly coiling itself back to its full height, its iridescent scales shimmering once more with life. But Cassandra's relief was short-lived as she turned her gaze to the containment field. The Croft stone inside pulsed with a dim, unsteady light, like a dying star clinging to the last of its energy. The crowd outside had grown restless. News of the successful extraction had spread like wildfire through Arcadia 7, and the colonists, along with soldiers, now gathered around the clinic, their curiosity tinged with fear. Everyone knew the legends of sentient relics capable of destruction, and while they were grateful for Nkora's recovery, the presence of the stone posed new questions and potential threats. Governor Tarek, flanked by 2 heavily armed guards, stepped into the clinic with an air of authority. His eyes flicked between Cassandra, the recovering serpent, and the containment cube holding the alien artifact. You've done well, Dr. Hale, he said, his voice low and steady. But now we need to deal with that. He gestured to the glowing cube. We cannot afford to keep something so dangerous here. The colony's safety comes first. Cassandra straightened, exhaustion giving way to resolve. Governor, the stone isn't just a mindless weapon. It's sentient. It understands, and it's willing to cooperate if we find a way to sustain it. Destroying it would be a waste, not to mention potentially catastrophic if it retaliates. Tarek's eyes narrowed. Cooperate? This thing nearly killed our colony's protector. You want us to gamble with the lives of everyone here? We need to destroy it now. Estlin, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. His luminescent eyes fixed on Tarek with a calm but firm intensity. Governor, Nkora owes its life to this human healer. I trust her judgment. The Croft stone is a relic of our past, yes, but it is also a relic of knowledge. If it can be tamed, it could become a source of untold power, not just a threat. The governor's jaw tightened. And if it can't be tamed? If it decides to turn on us? Cassandra stepped closer to the containment field, her heart aching as she watched the stone's light flicker. It was dying, slowly starving as it was cut off from its energy source. The neurotranslator still strapped to her wrist hummed softly, and on impulse, she activated it again, reaching out to the stone with her thoughts. Can you hear me? She sent through the neural link. I promised I'd find a way for you to survive. But I need you to trust me. We need to work together. A faint whisper echoed back, like the sigh of a distant wind. Dying, hungry, alone. The stone's sentience was fading, its presence weaker than before, but Cassandra could still feel its fury primal, desperate need to live. She turned back to the governor, her voice filled with a quiet determination. We can't just destroy it. There's a chance we can stabilize it. We need to find a source of energy that doesn't involve draining another living being. Tarek looked unconvinced, but Estlin nodded thoughtfully. In our archives, Estlin began slowly, there are ancient texts that speak of how the Croft stone was originally powered. It was never intended to feed on life forms, but rather on cosmic radiation, specifically the energy of pulsars and quasars. If we can channel that kind of energy here, perhaps it can be sustained without harm. Cassandra's eyes lit up with hope. If we could replicate that energy source, even in a limited form, we might save it. The governor pinched the bridge of his nose, clearly frustrated. You're suggesting we divert colony resources to power an alien artifact that nearly killed one of our most valuable allies? Think of it as an investment, Cassandra urged. If we understand how to harness its energy, it could revolutionize our own power systems. We could generate near-limitless energy for the colony. It's risky, yes, but the potential rewards are enormous. A tense silence filled the room. Outside, the murmur of the waiting crowd grew louder. Finally, Tarek exhaled sharply. Fine, he said. You have 48 hours, Dr. Hale. If you can't stabilize it by then, we destroy it. No exceptions. Cassandra nodded, her heart pounding. Agreed. The race against time. The next 2 days were a blur of frantic activity. Cassandra, Estlin, and a team of the colony's best engineers worked around the clock to construct a makeshift device capable of channeling energy akin to that of a pulsar. The containment field holding the Croftstone was reinforced, its energy levels monitored constantly to ensure it wouldn't escape. In the corner of the lab, Cora watched silently, its enormous eyes glowing with a quiet understanding. The serpent seemed to sense the urgency, offering a strange, comforting presence as the team raced against the clock. Finally, the energy converter was ready, a complex assembly of converters and amplifiers scavenged from the colony's backup generators. It was a risky contraption, hastily put together, but it would have to do. The idea was simple: flood the containment field with concentrated radiation to mimic the energy of a distant star. Cassandra stood before the stone, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the controls. All right, she murmured. Here goes nothing. With a deep breath, she flipped the switch. The converters hummed to life, and a beam of concentrated radiation flooded the containment field. The Croftstone, which had been pulsing weakly, suddenly flared with brilliant, blinding light. For a moment, everyone held their breath, expecting it to lash out in hunger or rage. But instead, the stone seemed to calm. Its pulsation stabilized, its color shifting to a soft, steady glow. Cassandra closed her eyes, reaching out with the neurotranslator one final time. Are you satisfied? She asked cautiously. A ripple of warmth washed over her mind, a gentle affirmation that was almost grateful. Yes, peace, energy, no hunger, thank you. The relief that swept through Cassandra was almost overwhelming. It's working, she called out to the others. The stone is stable. Estlin's face broke into a rare, radiant smile. You've done it, healer. You have tamed the relic. Governor Tarek, who had been watching with arms crossed, allowed a reluctant smile to tug at the corner of his mouth. It seems I underestimated you, Dr. Hale. Cassandra turned to Cora, who let out a low, approving rumble. The serpent's eyes, now fully restored to their luminous brilliance, seemed to twinkle with gratitude. A new beginning. The crisis averted, the colony of Arcadia 7 began to adjust to its new reality. The Croftstone was no longer a threat but an invaluable source of research and energy. With Estlin's help, Cassandra devised a stable system to channel cosmic energy into the stone, turning it into a self-sustaining power source that could potentially revolutionize the colony's energy grid. Estlin and his people, grateful for the salvation of their guardian, forged a new alliance with Arcadia 7, promising to share the secrets of their ancient technology. As for Cora, the Serpent Guardian resumed its silent vigil over the colony, its renewed strength a symbol of the bond between human and alien. One quiet evening, as the twin sun set over Arcadia 7, Cassandra stood alone on a ridge overlooking the colony. In her hand, she held a small, glowing shard and offshoot of the Croftstone, given to her by Estlin as a token of gratitude. The shard pulsed softly, a reminder of the strange journey they had all taken together. Thank you, Cassandra whispered to the stone, feeling its warmth seep into her palm. For choosing to trust me. As the stars began to fill the sky, she wondered what other mysteries lay hidden in the vast expanse of the universe, waiting to be discovered, and what new challenges they would face together. For now, though, she was content. The alien serpent was saved, the stone had found a new purpose, and a fragile peace had been forged on the far-flung colony of Arcadia 7.